All right. One, advanced design tips and tricks. Welcome to W.I.N Google Data Studio Beyond Basics. Those of you who are new to this, welcome, of course. My name is Chris Mercer. Hopefully all of you have met or know of me already at this particular point. So it's our job to sort of help you figure out how to use all these cool tools, and Data Studio is obviously a big component of that. Of course, many of you are here because you're already Academy members, so thank you for that. We do have, this is being streamed live to our YouTube channel as well, just the very first lesson. It's kind of just our way of saying, helping build the community where we can, because we realize not everybody has the budget for the Academy, so we try to, give a little advice we can. So welcome those of you who are on YouTube joining us live as well for the very first lesson. The flow of how this stuff works. We, as instructors, will go through. There'll be actually a multitude of instructors on this particular lesson, which is great. But there are going to be little pauses and things like that. So we do that so our video editors can actually edit down all of this stuff into the actual finished, what we call the student editions that are delivered into the Academy itself. So that's the little difference on how the live version works. So if you hear those and it kind of seems like, oh, they're pausing and then they start again, that's kind of why that's going on. So just be aware of that. The way that the Q&A works, this is the big reason that you are here live. We've got a ton of people here live, which is great. So as you have questions, you can put the questions in chat. Just remember the Q&A port is at the end of the content. So after we've covered all the content, we'll do the Q&A separately. So as you write down your question, just give a little bit of context. Remember that we might be looking at that question 20 minutes after you've put that question in, and it's got to make sense. Don't be like, oh, what button just click there? Because that won't mean anything 20 minutes later. So give us a little bit of context. And you also, because you're here live, you have the option of actually going live and chatting the stuff out, sharing screens if you need to. We're open to helping you however you can. The Academy members that are here live, again, we can't offer that option for YouTube viewers, but for the Academy members, that's why you're here live, to be able to get this live training. So you can take advantage of that as well. If you want to do that, just use your raise hand icon in Zoom, and then it'll show us that you want to go live and you have a mic and all that fun stuff when you talk things out. So you have those two options. Finally, for those of you who are watching the recordings, a lot of the Academy members watch the recordings thereafter, you can use Ask an Instructor support in the Academy. Just reference this lesson, and then the instructors will be able to help you out as well. So lots of ways to get help with all the cool techniques you will be learning. The schedule. So first and foremost, of course, we're on today, the first lesson at 1 p.m. Eastern, which of course is right now, basically happening. 1:06 as we're recording this. So you're going to be talking about the advanced tips and tricks, just formatting dashboards and some basic design stuff, how to think about some things. Then tomorrow, again, at this same time, advanced formulas. So we're going to be going to, and this is definitely a big upgrade from the previous W.I.N Google Data Studio Beyond Basics, because that one, a lot of what was Beyond Basics a year and a half ago is now kind of basic. So we've already got those in W.I.N Google Data Studio Basics, which you should absolutely watch if you haven't already. Make sure you got the basics down before you try the advanced stuff. This is definitely going to have some advanced stuff, including the formulas. On Wednesday, again, it's the exact same time, extracting data. So we're going to be talking about that. We use this a lot. It is so useful to get your dashboards faster, because as you do more cool things with Data Studio, they can slow down. And so extracting data, we'll talk about that. On Thursday, this is the fourth lesson, advanced interactions. So we'll be talking about how to actually get the users a little more involved with your dashboard, because if they're not using it, let's just face it, they're not going to take any action from it. You want them in it, playing around with it, using it. There's some really cool things you can do with Data Studio to allow for that. And then this is unannounced. So most of the people that are here today don't realize this is about to happen, but it is. So we are doing a lesson 5. So this was not announced in the initial kind of curriculum. It was only going to be 4 lessons, but we decided kind of last minute this past Friday to add this one in because it is such an important topic. And it's because there's a fairly new update that came out like within days of this recording. So we're going to put that in there as well around blending data and that sort of stuff. And this is combining multiple data sources. That is going to be a different time. It's always a different time on Fridays. It's 3 p.m. Eastern. So anybody who wants to be here live, you can be here at 3 p.m. Eastern. You just check the links in your email, Academy members that are here and able to watch that. So little note. Also, of course, want to introduce our primary guest instructor. I'm actually going to be sitting in the background for the vast majority of this. In this case, I get to be like the producer role. I'm kind of excited about my producer role for this time. But of course, Julie Brade, who many of you as Academy members already know and love. Julie has been teaching this stuff for a very, very long time. Started as a digital marketing associate with us years ago. Very quickly moved into learning Tag Manager and Analytics, teaching Tag Manager Analytics since 2017, so it's gone on 5 years, a little after that now at this point. So she has been through so many different scenarios when it comes to data and helping clients understand their data because she runs our dedicated management services. She helps teach clients how to use their data so she understands everything you've gone through, everything you're going to go through. She gets it. And she is our Data Studio rock star. She does everything in Data Studio with us. So her and I work together a lot. She works with Amari, our marketing department, to get their reports together that they need. So she gets everything that you are about to go through, everything you've gone through, everything you think about, that you go, oh, I have a client that's done this. Julie's been through it. So that's why I just want to emphasize this particular slide. She gets you. She understands what you've been going through, and just absolutely amazing. I know. And she is, to be fair, better qualified to teach this stuff than me. So from this first lesson, she's going to be definitely handling everything. And actually for the majority of this course, she's going to be handling most of the heavy lifting. Now, that said, as measurementmarketing.io, it's our job to make sure that we get you the best of the best, right? That's what we're doing here. Julie is the best of the best when it comes to this Data Studio stuff. She taught all of the beginner Data Studio stuff. She's definitely teaching a big chunk of this beyond basic stuff. And we also have Ahmad Kanani joining us as well. So Ahmad is the founder of CVAC Analytics. He's a certified measurement marketer as well. He's back in Winner Circle as well. He's responsible for over $4 billion in combined revenue that he's been doing analysis for. He teaches Google Data Studio as well under his own company with some advanced stuff. And so we're bringing him here because some of the stuff is so advanced. And we thought, well, as measurementmarketing.io, it's our job to make sure that you are getting the best of the best when it comes to this, these tools. And Ahmad is really good at this stuff as well. So we're bringing in multiple voices so you can hear it from multiple people in the academy. So I wanted to introduce Ahmad as well. You'll hear more from him as we go through this particular lesson. All right. So with that, we are going to go ahead and officially kick off lesson number 1, advanced design tips and tricks. Now, all of this, when we do our wins, we always start with this slide because it is the most important slide, is to think about one thing. This course in particular, you're going to see a lot of different strategies or tactics or techniques that might not apply to your situation this very moment today. That is not to say that they won't do that forever, just maybe not right now. So when you think about this, you just think about the one thing that you can actually take action on, the one thing you can practice, right? The one thing you can make a thing and do something with, what we call riding the bike. Practice that. Then you come back, rewatch this win, you'll pick up new one things, right? Specifically for this particular lesson. Now, the framework, how does this fit in the framework? We always talk about this because measurement, it's not about the tools. I love Data Studio, but in measurement, is just Data Studio doesn't make measurement happen. Data Studio is just a tool in your measurement ecosystem. So how you think about measurement is very important. So Data Studio, when we think about the questions, when you think about planning, building, and launching, the plan step, you have the questions we're trying to answer, the information we need to collect in order to get those answers, the actions we're going to take based upon the answers we get. That's your measurement plan. Then you move into the build. This is where Data Studio comes in because Data Studio is designed to interact like a dashboard. We talk about this a lot in Google Data Studio Basics, but the point is you're supposed to look at your dashboard, see the number and be like, cool, I know what actions I'm going to take. That's why you have the measurement plan there to do that. Now, when you're connecting the dots into a story form, Data Studio is incredible at that. It makes it much easier to listen to the conversation that's happening between the users and the website. And so you can actually judge it. You can measure against and say, hey, is this actually working the way it's supposed to? That's what the forecasting step is. And then ultimately, because you are measuring each of those steps, you know where to focus your resources. You know what the point is to optimize. You know the lever you're supposed to pull to get the biggest bang for your buck. That's how you go through this. Over and over again, you go through this, and that's what produces revenue growth and profit growth because you are following this particular system. So make sure to follow along with the framework. Always, always, always. It's not about learning the tool that's going to save you. It's using the framework that's going to actually save you. Using the tool makes the framework easier at certain points. In this case, Data Studio. All right. Now, in addition, we're going to cover 3 main topics today. The first is conditional formatting. So we're going to talk about that because there is some advanced nuances to this, and it's incredibly useful. And if you're not using formatting, we figured this would be a good jumping off point to make sure we talk about conditional formatting. We will then go into community visualizations, which open up a whole other thing that Data Studio has available. It's one of my favorite parts about Data Studio because Google was essentially giving it to the developer community and say, you know what, we're not going to be able to create everything perfect for this, but you all can. So let the community develop it. And that's community visualizations. We'll talk more about those. And then finally, Templar Pro, we will talk about as well, which of course I'm personally not an expert in. Julie has used this to maybe some extent. Actually, I don't believe she has yet, but Ahmad definitely has, which is why we have Ahmad here to help you out as an instructor to make sure that, again, you get the best of the best. All right, with that, we will go ahead and start with our first official topic for lesson number 1, conditional formatting. We'll see you there. W.I.N Google Data Studio Beyond Basics continues with our first topic of lesson number 1, conditional formatting. Now, of course, we're going to go ahead and jump right in with one small exception. We're going to start with Julie Brade. So I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Julie Brade. Just as a reminder here, sorry, I have to wait just a moment because this is where the computer is trying to catch up to the clicks and clearly didn't work. So give me just a second to reset. I got my computer doing a million things, I guess, because it is flying left and right. This is the beauty of doing this live, by the way, because all the stuff gets cut off. You don't have to worry about this in the student editions, but the rest of you that are here live, you get to see what it's like, the dirty underbelly of production. Okay, so with that, I'm going to start over here for Vince, our video editor, who's going to be able to cut all this stuff out. As I make a mental note, hey, here's what we're going to have to cut out. All right. We're going to go ahead and start, of course, by just jumping in like we normally do. And the very first thing we're going to start with is reintroducing Julie Brade. Remember, she has been, Academy members, you already know her. She's one of our primary instructors back there at Ask Instructor Support, but builds all of our Data Studio reports at measurementmarketing.io for sure. Has trained a ton of clients, many of which are household names to you if you were in digital marketing in any way, shape, or form. Guarantee you've heard about some of these people that she has trained. So she is very, 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 very true to say she is the person behind the person in a lot of these things. And as well, that she handles our dedicated measurement management clients. So she's building dashboards for them as well. The reason I emphasize this is because she's got so much variety, so many different concepts, so many different business models, so many different tech platforms. Whatever it is that you're facing, she has faced as well in some way, shape, or form. So with that, Julie, I'm going to go ahead and let you officially take over the screen share and take it away.
When we are looking at this, we at least have a forecast. And this is something we talked about in W.I.N Google Data Studio Basics, is at least having a forecast so you know where you're supposed to be ending up. And after looking at this report for a little while, you might figure out that this 4% is outside of this 8 to 12%. However, if we were to use conditional formatting, it would be a whole lot easier to see that and be really apparent right away. We have this little saying that you should be able to know what action you should be able to take on your dashboard within seconds of looking at it. I was taught back in the day of when I was doing Excel dashboards and stuff for manufacturing companies that they should be able to understand what the dashboard is telling them within 30 seconds. And now with everything we have and all the visuals that we're able to do in Data Studio, honestly, that really should be like a 5 seconds. Like, we could have that 5-second rule for Data Studio too, or any other type of reporting platform. If you're using the framework properly, you really should be able to identify action. So we're going to jump in and I'm going to show you what it could look like if we were to have conditional formatting. So right away, we can see the difference. And so we're able to see that, hey, this one is red. This is probably where we should focus our efforts in adjusting, figure out what is happening on this offer page. And instead of looking at the cart page or looking somewhere else, that could possibly be the issue. So that's the reason why we want to be able to use conditional formatting. So let's jump in and back into our edit and go through how we actually apply conditional formatting. So we can mainly we use conditional formatting in our scorecards, but you are able to use them in tables. We're going to focus on scorecards for now. So we're going to go clicking on our one element, then we go to our style tab. And this at the very top, we have conditional formatting we're going to add. And so we know, because of our forecast, we know we want it, if it's between 8 to 12%, we want it to be green. That's always great if we start there. If we were in a table, this would have a drop down, but since we're only using a scorecard, this one just says values, and that's perfectly fine. Then we're going to change it to, in my brain, you might process this a little bit differently. In my brain, I visualize a number line. Like, remember in grade school where you had to use a number line and circle things and, just show how you're visualizing, subtracting or adding or multiplying or whatever it is. And I visualize a number line, and that's how I work with my logic. So I'm saying if it's greater than or equal to, and then I go back and see what my number is, 8 to 12. And so the other super important thing is I can't put 8 here because that's thinking it's not a percent. And because we're using a percent, we have to put 0.08. So we're saying greater than or equal to 8%. And then we're going to, again, think of our number line, or less than or equal to 0.12%. And so we'll get to the or statement here in just a moment, but we can, again, thinking of our number line, greater than or equal to 8%, or less than or equal to 12%. So we're basically saying in between 8 and 12%. And then we're able to come over here and choose the colors that we want for our whatever it is that our goal. So if you could choose branded colors if you would like, or if you like the green, yellow, red, that is the route that we have chosen as well. And most of our clients get that. It's easy for them to understand. And then, so we're telling, this is the logic that we're using right now, is we're saying if it's between 8 and 12%, then I would like the cell to have this format. And that's all we're saying right now. We want to save it, and we're going to see what happens. Nothing happens because it wasn't in between those two spots. But then we need to go ahead and add another one. Let's see what happens if we can adjust it to have maybe a yellow. And this is actually where we get to show off the special sheet that we have created for you. For those of you that are Academy members, we will put this in the resources that's part of this course. Like in this course, once we have all the videos and everything, this will be part of the resources, like where you see your transcripts and stuff like that. So you will have access to this, but this is just a guide of what type of conversion rates you might expect for different types of traffic. So we have cold traffic and warm traffic, and this is just to kind of get you started with your guessing. If you have no idea what kind of conversion rate you should be aiming for, you're going to have to guess. And sometimes you can use historical data, or sometimes you can use what kind of page it is. Like, well, it kind of behaves like an offer page. So let's start here, and then we can adjust after we have plenty of data to tell us, what the pattern is. So again, you might have very, very different rates, and once you have this tool back in the Academy, you'll copy it and you can adjust it however you need. But this is what we're going to use for our guide today. And for the yellow, so what not quite and part of our goal for our offer page is we're saying between 12 and 15%, or between 6 and 8%. And so I'm already hearing the questions that you guys are asking. Well, why do you have yellow above? If they're at 12.5% or 13%, isn't that good? It's even better than their goal. You are correct. However, if you are consistently achieving higher than your forecast, then clearly your forecast might be incorrect, or you might be actually somewhere in the warm traffic area. Or most likely when we see this is there's not enough traffic to give you a useful truth. So there is such a thing as having too high of a conversion rate, because again, not your forecast is incorrect. you need more traffic, or something else could be going on. So it doesn't mean that you necessarily need to change the page possibly. It just, lets you know that your forecast is off. So we'll talk more about that here in a moment. But the next step that we need to do is figure out our yellow, which this is honestly the most complicated of all of them. So we're going to walk through how to do this. I'm going to actually I want to pull this over here real quick. And so we're going to choose to add another rule, and then we're going to, again, work with our fun logic here, where we need to be very specific. And again, thinking of our number line. And so anything between 6 and 8%, I want to pull this over, anything between 6 and 8% is what we want, is what we're going to focus on first. And I'm trying to get all these chat things out of my screen. All right, so we're going to choose if it's greater than or equal to, and then we're going to say 0.06, and we're going to say and less than or equal to, and then instead of saying 0.08, because that number is already being used for the green, this is where your conditional formatting logic has to be pretty exact or pretty sound, because or else you might end up having an incorrect, it'll end up not having any format because it's not quite sure what to do with it. So we're going to say 0.07999. And basically that's saying right below whatever this is. And then we can go ahead. I'm going to just save this after we color code it. So we're going to choose our yellow, and we're going to make sure our font is white. And we're going to save this. And then we're going to add one more. I could have saved and add another, but I want you to just see that it didn't change. But we're going to go ahead and add another rule real quick. We're going to add the red, which is basically anything that's below 6%. Because we're going to see this guy change a color. So we're going to say less than, and this is where we can say 0.06, or we could say less than or equal to 0.0599. So that's where you kind of have to think through your logic, because this is saying it cannot be 6%, but less than or equal to 0.0599. So this is one of those things where you really have to get into it and start playing around and kind of try to break the logic so you understand it better. So if you haven't really played with conditional formatting in a Google Sheet, this is where you can just tie your data into a spreadsheet and work with the numbers and see how the different logic works for you. We do have a tool that's going to help you with a lot of the heavy lifting, but you still have to be able to go in here and edit the logic to make it work for you. So it says if it's less than or equal to 0.599, so basically anything less than 6, and this is the formatting that we want to go ahead and have for it. So we have finally got it to change its color. So technically, right now, what we have, coming back to our little sheet here, is we have these three: this green, this yellow, this red. Most of you are probably going to be perfectly happy with that. And then you could adjust your green to say anything higher than 8 could be green. I know a lot of you are going to want that because having anything that's the yellow and the red above might be something that you're not ready for. But we're going to go ahead and dive in with this just because it is best practice and it is beyond the basics. And we want to show you how to go ahead and do that. So we have our 3 conditions. We have learned that it doesn't quite work very well if you have 2 different yellows or 2 different reds. So what we have to do is actually come into this yellow and edit this yellow and then adjust accordingly. So right now we're saying if it's between 6 and 8%, this is what we're going to do. And then we're going to say, or then we're going to add in our next conditions, which I will cheat for you and say it's between 12 and 15%. So again, thinking of our number line, and it says it needs to be greater than 0.12, and this again, logic, very, very logical, and less than or equal to 0.1499. So we're basically saying if it's between 6 and 8 or between 12 and 15, I need it to be yellow. And so we're just going to go ahead and save. And since we have all these different conditions in here, we're going to go ahead and jump straight into our red. And again, think of our logic for our red. We have the logic that we're working with is if it's greater than 15 is what we're looking for. And so now instead of saying an and, because we need an and statement. So this is an or statement. So if it's less than or equal to basically 6% or greater than or equal to, and this is where we put 0.15, and that means 15%. So it's greater than 15% or less than 6%. And then we can go ahead and we click off and we can go ahead and save. And so this is a complete, so we have our green that is saying if it's between 8 and 12%, our yellow is saying between 6 and 8, and then 12 and 15. And then finally, our red is saying between 6 and, or less than 6 or greater than 15. So we have our green, yellow, red, and then another yellow and a red. Or if you go backwards, red, yellow, green, yellow, red. So we're going to go ahead and close this. And now we have our full offer page has all of its conditional formatting for that. One quick thing that we're going to show for this is you do have this cart page, and another option for conditional formatting, if this is something that you would want to do, is you can do a color scale. We've honestly never really done a color scale just because it has all these other colors in it, and we just want it to be very clear, red, yellow, or green, instead of doing an actual color scale. But perhaps it might make sense for you to do that. I just want to show you that that is an option for you. All right, and then going on to another fun trick with conditional formatting, or actually just with Data Studio in general, is so if I want to apply these rules to this cart page, and if we come in here and check out these rules, we can copy this. So I'm going to use a Control-C. Then I'm going to come over here and click on this element, then right click and paste special. I'm just hovering right now, and then we can paste style only. And that actually made all of the rules that this one had be the same rules over here. And so the special tool that our Academy members will have access to with this course actually includes that exact same thing. So for this final funnel right here, we have, this is looking for the goal of 1 to 3%. We have all the rules here in this particular cheat sheet. And so because I'm using the same browser and I'm logged in as the same user, I can do the exact same thing in a different document too, by the way. I'm pressing Control-C again, or you can right click and copy. And then we're going to come back to our original document, come to the number that we want. We click on the element, then right click, paste, or hovering over paste special, and we say paste style only. Now that is how all of the rules that we had for our cheat sheet is going to be applied to this document. Now, as you can see, the text is a little bit bigger, and that wasn't, it doesn't match the rest of our dashboard. So we just use the things that we learned back in W.I.N Google Data Studio Basics to go ahead and adjust. And a quick other note for the cheat sheet is it is going to choose the colors that you have for your theme and layout. So if we go into our customize here, just a quick note for those of you that are going to use the tool, it's going to choose the colors that you have here. And so you might have to come into, after you paste the style, you might have to come in here and go back to your style and click on your conditional formatting. And as you can see here, here's a blue. We need to change that. So let's go ahead and click on our edit. And then we have our background color. We want it to be the yellow, and our text style color is perfectly fine. So we're going to save it. And the red is exactly what we want it to be. And it's just because it's choosing colors from the theme and just grabbing the same spot it was in the theme of the other document. So just that's, you might have to adjust. And again, you can adjust it to be your branded colors if maybe red is the good color and you want to adjust that. So you can always adjust, copy this document and make it your own, however it is. And then you could do the exact same thing with warm traffic. If you have like, with our clients that we've had for years, an opt-in rate for them with a couple of different clients is usually 60 to 65% for them, sometimes a little bit higher depending on what they're doing. So for our client, if they were between 45 to 55, it'd actually be too low for them. So you can definitely copy this and make it your own for that. So that is what we're going to cover for conditional formatting. All right, so that is lesson 1, topic 1, conditional formatting. Coming up next in lesson 1, topic 2, community visualizations. See you there. All right, let's go with topic 2, community visualizations. We're going to go ahead and pick up where we left off with our conditional formatting, but jump to the next page. So another way to visualize if you are in the realm of your forecast is using different types of community visualizations that we have here, these different components. And this very popular one is actually by Google. Google Data Studio is the one that makes this one. And it's called a gauge. So if we click on this guy right here, community visualizations, we can see this gauge by Google. It doesn't have image right now because I guess we lost our image, but that's okay. And we can come through here, and I'm actually going to rebuild this guy right here because you'll see that it doesn't take too long. And we don't want to use a record count. Let's use offer page conversion rate like we have on the other one. All right. So this gauge is another great visualization for users that maybe want to kind of, it's almost gamifying it, like they want to get to the green. And if you're able to have the space for it in your dashboard, it's a great tool for that. For our dashboards, we usually use the conditional formatting, but we do have some clients that really like the gauge. So that's the reason why that we're going to show this guy off right now. And so the way that you work inside the gauge is another time where you have to be really careful with your decimals. And so this one, as you can see, the maximum gauge point is actually 0.12. And we look at this guy by default, right here, the maximum gauge value is 100. And then we could see what it's actually pointing down is like this, you know, way down over here. It's because it's the scale that it's looking at is all the way to 100. If we change the scale to 10 and see what happens, well, it's still way down over here. It's not what we're looking for. Let's go ahead and change it to the 0.12 because that's really what we're looking for. Oh, so our offer page is 0.04 now. That's the reason why. Anyways, so you come down over here and then you just adjust all of these to be whatever it is that you're looking for. So our green, could it be from what we learned before, 0.08, and the range ends 0.12, and then you go through and adjust everything here. And that is how you can work with a gauge. We'll actually do this really fast just because it is 0.01 is where we start, and then where we end is 0.03. Oops, excuse me. That's not, I'm thinking of a different conversion rate, 0.06 and 0.08. And then same thing if it starts on a 0 and ends on 0.06. And then again, you can also use this same guide for your gauge, if that's something that you would want to do. And then you can adjust the format and all this other fun stuff on there. So that is another way to use your conversion rate to visualize, are you where you're supposed to be? So you can do that. And then going on to the next one, this is actually probably one of our most popular questions that we get when people are seeing our different dashboards. We have something in our dashboard that shows off of our different scrolls, and it's using another funnel chart that is called, it's a funnel chart by, I'm going to butcher this, but Amiya is the one that they use. And it's quite easy to use. We're actually going to grab this one and drag and drop it as well. And I'm going to just show you how we rebuilt this one. And it won't let you remove anything. You have to have at least 2 different metrics. And so we're going to just drag these over and then start getting rid of stuff. So we have our offer page here, then we have our cart page. And so if you have your ACE goals set up, you're able to have goal 1 and goal 2, goal 3. And so it's quite simple to be able to tell this story of what's happening on your page or through your funnel. Then you can go into your style over here. This is what most people like with this one, is you can show your initial, and I'll spread this out so you can see it, which is, so this is taking this 12 divided by this right here. Or you can show your, and you can show your previous. So the conversion rate from the step right above. And so that's what a lot of people like about this particular one. You don't have the ability to change the colors for each different individual bar yet. That'd be kind of cool if you could, but you're not able to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this one, because the question we always get is, how do we turn it into the scroll? And that's what we wanted to show you today. So this is what I'm referring to in one of our different dashboards. We're going to let it load as I switched it over. I got mad at me for doing that. This right here, they want to know, how do we get our scroll to do that? So that's what we're going to learn here today using this community visualization. So like a cooking show, I already have these guys ready to go for us. This is something that you would have learned in the basics. It is kind of combining a bunch of different basic skills. So I'm going to go through it kind of quickly and then show you one more time. So we have this metric, and it's named at 10%, but it's actually users with a filter applied to it. So because of the way we have our data set up for measurementmarketing.io, the event action is scroll depth and the event label equals to 10. And the reason we're doing this, because we didn't, if we ever have 100 or something else, we didn't want it to also fire for 100. So we are, we know our logic. Of course, you guys would know your logic too if you've gone through your, we've gone through W.I.N Google Data Studio Basics. If you don't know, send us a question over Ask an Instructor, and we can guide you through how you can find that information. So we're identifying those that have scrolled 10%, and we've done the same thing for 25, for 50, and for 75. We're going to make a 90%. So we're going to copy this guy, paste it. And this is exactly how we did this. And I'm just swapping out the filter that I've already created. And we are going to change this, instead of 75%, we're going to say 90%. And that's all we're doing. Now we're going to blend these 5 together. So we're selecting them, and then we're blending the data. And we're going to give it a second. It's going to show up right there. And so I see this is blended data 1. So I'm going to come up to this chart, and we're going to remove this current data source, choose the blended data one that we just created. And now we're able to drag and drop these other metrics that we have, this 75 and this 90. And this is how we can choose, show this chart with scroll rate. The other thing that you could do, and it's actually what we do when we're doing this for clients, is we would apply a special filter for a particular page. So this right here is looking something for IOJ, so that's why I've identified it that way. But I could create a filter that would say page. We're going to look for page. There it is. And we could say contains, and then this could be our Academy offer page. I happen to know it contains the word membership. Page, and so now this 10% is only looking at the Academy offer page. And then I would apply that to all of them. Because right now this is looking at scroll at all the pages that this particular Academy view has. And so if I wanted for a particular offer page, I would do that. So when I have this type of setup for a client and they have multiple funnels, and sometimes they'll have like every few weeks they have a new funnel, I literally have this in the background. I have it's like a builder sheet that I have for myself in the behind the scenes in Data Studio. So I have all 5 of these without the page filter. And then I have another set of 5 with page filter that I just kind of swap out. And then when I'm ready, I will right click and blend the data for the ones that have the page. And then obviously best practice would be to rename the blended data. And so this would be Academy offer page scroll. And we're going to show that real fast just so everyone can see that. And so we can say Academy. Yes, we're going to do this Friday. That's right. Here we go, and save. We're just going to show how to name that so that we can find it easily later, and best practices. So we're going to go ahead and close, and then we're going to swap this because we already have 10, 25, all these metrics here. When we swap out the data source, it really shouldn't be that big of a deal. It's going to already kind of figure out where they're supposed to go, and there it goes. And now we have scroll for a particular page once it pulls up. And so to answer that age-old question, how in the world do we get that community visualization to work with scroll? It's all about making sure that your data is coming into whatever platform you're using in a very efficient way so that you can do something like this. So, and if it's not coming through this way, again, hit us up and ask an instructor support. Maybe there's something that's slightly different that you'll have to do for yours, and we're definitely happy to help. So finally, with community visualizations, so we're going to show one more example, then we're going to give another overview. Something that we also get a lot of questions on is the same kind of thing, but with our IOJ, which most of you guys know is Eyes on the Journey. So we have lots of other things, courses and workshops that talks about how we, what the strategy behind and how we implement. There's even a Get It Done guide that kind of plug and plays for you for the Eyes on the Journey. But how does this particular one work? Well, it is another community visualization called a funnel, but we have to see it. So this one's called a metric funnel. It says by Power My Analytics. The first one, or the second one that we looked at, the one that we did with scroll, is this one right here by Amaya. So you'll get used to seeing those different names, but this one's by Power My Analytics. Yes, the Power My Analytics is the one. They're the ones that created this and maintain it. And so when we drop it, it just kind of grabs the default metrics that we have here, and we're still using our demo spreadsheet that we have. And so we can just, again, like we did before, drag and drop if we want to see something specific. That's how we would do that. But your questions that you guys always like to ask, well, how do you do that for Eyes on the Journey? Almost the exact same thing that we did with scroll. So here we go, again, our cooking show, having everything here and ready to go with filters. So again, we named it, again, basic stuff that you learned in the first course, WIN Google Data Studio Basics. This is users, but we renamed it so it's we can identify it very easily. We then have two different filters applied, same thing we did with our scroll. This one right here is identifying this particular step that we have. Yours might be slightly different if you're calling it the impression something different. Some of you with the Get It Done guide actually have I1 space, something like that. You might be able to do that. So this is just identifying the different I part of the journey. And the second filter is also identifying the particular Academy offer page. In this way that we're doing it, we didn't say page like we did the scroll because we're sending this information through in a very particular way. So we're able to use event label in this one. So again, just we're not going to go into the specifics of how Eyes on the Journey works, but we're basically identifying the particular step and the particular page we want IOJ for. So, and we do that for all 5 of them. You already know how to copy them and swap out your filters and to rename. And we do the exact same thing we did with scroll. We highlight all of them, starting with the first one, ending with the final one is the best practice to do that. And then we right click and blend data. And it sticks it in the middle. So I'm using my arrow keys to pull it up so we can see. And then what we can do, we see that it's called blended data 2. We could then go ahead and remove this one and choose our new data source, blended data 2. And then it's going to choose the first 3 metrics that it already had in place. And then we can just add the next 2. Add those in. And so that is how we create our IOJ. One quick note about the colors. It chooses the colors in the order of your theme and layout setting. So we come into our theme and layout, we choose customize, and we scroll down to our chart palette, and you can see it's green, blue, yellow, purple, and then this orange. If I were to swap them, we would then see the colors change within the chart. So if I were to make this a blue, and this is a little quirk thing that's going on with Data Studio currently, but if I see that there's another scroll bar, so I'm using my track on my mouse to scroll all the way down here. And then I could choose a different color. Let's say I wanted the first color to be purple, or excuse me, the second color to be purple. Now you can see it changed. If I wanted the fourth one to be blue, I scroll down here and I choose the blue. And so that's how the chart colors are chosen. You can choose and go in here and choose the style. And there's other things you can do with it that might be useful for you. But if you want to choose the exact colors for these, you have to do that in your theme. All right, real quick before we finish up this topic, if you go into community visualizations and explore more, I highly encourage you all to do this every couple of months just because there's new things coming out all the time and sometimes updates. So for instance, this little guy right here is also another really cool tool. If you click on the 3 dots and say learn more, it's going to usually pull up an actual Data Studio document. Sometimes it'll go into a website, but it will guide you through how to set it up and turn it on, and how you can use it. This one's using it for a date, like if you want to see only sales for a particular date, but we already have a date range filter. What I find this really useful for is if your client is asking to see information about if an average order value is higher than $100 or whatever it is, you know, let's see the journey of those users. How are those users going through the funnel, and how do we make that easier for users to do? Because we like those users that are spending that much money. And so there's lots of different things that you can do with this for that. So just go through here and see what you have available that might be useful for you. Go around and play through them. So most of them you may not ever need to know, but being aware of what is possible is really helpful too. So this is like one of those little animated charts. We saw a lot of this when COVID first started, with people with like these things like this stuff. We saw a lot of this. But it's very neat visual if you're giving a presentation or something, maybe not on a normal dashboard, but still a really cool thing. So that is all of our different community visualizations. There's also ways where you can get handy dandy little codes. And I'll let Ahmad speak to that in our next topic, but you're able to get codes from different developers or people that have built ones. and apply them. So they're not listed in here, but if you find someone that has it on their blog and you opt in for it, then you can go ahead and apply it and you'll be able to use it. But we'll talk more about that later. So that was lesson 1, topic 2, community visualizations. Coming up next, we have Templar Pro. You might be wondering, what is that? It's a surprise. So we'll have to wait to see what it is. So coming up next. All right, let's finish off this lesson with topic number 3, Templar Pro. Let's go ahead and jump right in, and we're going to reintroduce our guest instructor, Ahmad Kanani. I've known Ahmad for, I guess, going on 5 years now, and he has always been our go-to for things that are more technical, and trying to see like, okay, how are other ways that we can do this? I know he has done amazing with his clients, as you could see, over 4+ billion in combined revenue that he's analyzed and helped collect and process. He loves helping small agency owners with Data Studio, and his program called Profitable Dashboards. I've actually gone through that course and found it very valuable too. He's also a certified measurement marketer, and as you all know, he is a Data Studio guru. So Ahmad Kanani, are you ready?
Yes.
Awesome. And let you share your screen.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Mercer and Julie, for having me here today. And really pleased to be here talking to you guys, introducing you to Templar.pro and some of the things that we've been doing. First of all, I'm not a guru. I'm still learning all about Data Studio, BigQuery, and all this stuff. But thank you for calling me like that. It's cool. Okay, so taking it from where Julie left with community visualizations, she mentioned that we can actually go into Data Studio and click on build your own visualization and load custom visualizations that are not publicly available in Data Studio. So we in COWARC, we created community visualization whenever we had a need and we wanted to visualize data in a way that we couldn't find any kind of built-in or ready-made community visualization to do so. And I decided not to publish them through the public inventory of community visualizations. For selfish reasons, I wanted people to give me their emails and things like that. But you can find my community visualizations that are available on my blog. We started with custom Google fonts in Data Studio. Super easy. It was something I really like to be able to do so, having a title with another font that is not available in Data Studio. But actually for that, we needed to create a community visualization. And it took us a day or two to create that. And it's one of the most popular ones that we've ever published, and the first one that we've published. You can find it on my blog. It's free. You can just sign up and get the manifest path to put in Data Studio and use it. Secondly, we created conditional content component for Google Data Studio. It works like the conditional formatting, but in a different way. So with conditional formatting, you only can change the colors of text or the background. But what if we want to show a little bit of icon or smiley or something else, or actually different kind of content based on different ranges of a metric? So if metric is really good, we want to have happy face. If it's bad, we want to have a sad face, or different kind of visual things that can communicate data better to the client or the viewer of the report. So there was the second one that we've built. And we also built a funnel. Our funnel, it is not published. I have not been really good in marketing it, but it's also free. You can access the Funnel Pro from this manifest part, you can change all of the colors and all of the setting of this one. It shows the metrics at the top, and then conversion rate to the first metric and conversion rate relative to the previous metric. And all of these are customizable. And I guess it's nicely looking. I really like the looks of it. But it's, whatever you prefer, you can use this one as well. These were 3 of the community visualizations that we created before. The final one that we've created, and actually I don't think Julie even has seen it, or Mercer, is the globe visualization, which basically we pushed it far, far away and load a 3D object in Data Studio, shaded it, applied lighting. There's camera movement, there is object movement, interactivity. And these are actually latitude, longitudes of different airports on Earth mapped to the actual 3D object, and the number of flights are per row level. It's kind of creating and calculating Bezier curves and the dashes and the speeds and the colors, etc., to show the flow of like flights between different airports. It can be used for anything location based, but it was a fun project, and actually we did it for a client of ours. But the fact is, not everyone requires a visualization as complicated as this one. Like the most popular one that we had was custom font, and followed by conditional content. So the ones that are easier, the ones that are more useful, maybe not as attractive as Funnel Pro or this 3D visualization, they are useful. But the second fact is that not everyone has the resources and capabilities and teams and skills within their organization to start and create a community visualization whenever they need something, right? Because first of all, it is a little bit complicated. You need to download the Data Studio's SDK. You need to know advanced front-end programming skills, using NPMs, developing locally, deploying on Google Cloud. It's a really complicated and a slow process, even for those who know it. Remember, for Google Font, which was easy, we had to spend a day or two to just get something as easy as that to work. So we were thinking, okay, can we make it simpler? Can we create an internal tool for ourselves initially that makes it a little bit easier for us to create custom visualization? So the way I described it to my developer was that I want a community visualization that helps create other community visualizations, but easier. And we ended up with templr.pro. It's basically a community visualization that you load it inside Data Studio, and then it allows you to quickly, easily just use HTML, CSS, and JavaScript right within Google Data Studio interface with real-time feedback to create kind of simple custom visualizations that are useful to you and your clients, right? And when thinking of how many people know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript versus how many people know how to use NPM and Data Studio's SDK and Google Cloud and like that, there are many, many more people that can actually use this tool more quickly to create custom visualizations for themselves. It works like this. You load it in Data Studio, you apply it to a component, you place it on the report canvas. It will show you the data that it's receiving from Data Studio, so the metrics and the dimensions that you've applied to it, and that it allows you to enter your template in HTML, style it with CSS, add some functionality with JavaScript, and finally pass on the actual numbers, so this metric that the component is receiving from Data Studio within your HTML dynamically like this, right? So you can actually grab values from Data Studio and put it within HTML to create any kind of interface that you can create with HTML and CSS dynamic with dynamic values. So it's really powerful. If you look at it, Data Studio is really good to get and extract information and data from many, many places and marketing tools and analytics tools, but it lacks visualization capabilities. There are limited types of visualization that you can create with it. But with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, you can basically create anything. And now we are kind of overlapping these two together with templr.pro. So it receives data within Data Studio securely from anywhere, and it can feed it inside HTML and CSS. Like this one is basically, this is a Data Studio report, by the way. And this is an effect that I could create with templr.pro. The templating engine that templr.pro uses is handlebars.js. It is a well-known one that there's a huge community around it. There are lots of people that can and know how to use handlebars templating syntax within HTML for creating dynamic web pages environment. Now let's take a look at some examples of things that we have created with templr.pro. So you can get some inspiration that, what are the use cases now? It's good. It sounds cool, but what can we do with it? First of all, the same Google font, what we started with. So these are two Google fonts not available in Data Studio. These are all Data Studio pages that I'm loading. And it took us 8 actual hours to create it with Google Cloud SDK over 2 days. But with templr.pro, it took 5 minutes. 5 lines of HTML code. This is actually 1 line. I could say that like, this is 2 or 3 lines and 3 lines of CSS. I loaded the font and applied the CSS and we are done. So the same result, quickly, more easily, real-time feedback. Second one, the conditional content. So right now, the total of the metric that I applied to this conditional content is 52,882. And I defined it here that if the metric is greater than GT, greater than 40,000, then print the metric, this is great. And it says, this is great. But if I filter the report, like only look at mobile, right? It falls below 40,000, even below 25,000. And the actual content changes, not just the color, which I could apply with CSS, but the actual content changes. We can use emojis, we can use icons, things like that. Again, more than 20 hours creating this with SDK, 5 minutes, and it's even more flexible. You can do whatever you want with HTML and change it based on the actual value and the ranges that you can define, right? The next example is something that helps you kind of tidy up your reports, because basically whenever you present a report to your clients, sometimes you need to define how the metric is calculated. What is this conversion rate? Is it based on sessions, based on users? How do you define, that KPI, based on their business logic? Usually for these, we need to add paragraphs at the side or at the bottom of the report, in the footer, or another page completely. And people need to switch from top to bottom or page to page to figure out what is the definition of that metric. But I wanted to have a tooltip for our clients, right? So we created this, a few lines of HTML. It gets the metric and the dimension from the name of the metric and the amount of the metric from data, and a few lines of CSS to make it hidden by default and make it shown when I hover over this icon at the top, right? And not only it is a tooltip and it allows you to enter whatever you want, but also it allows you to enter dynamic values within your message to the client. So just think about it, having this at the side of a table or a scorecard versus having a full paragraph of text trying to describe how it's being calculated, or is it good or bad, okay? The next one is a custom table. So sometimes we wanted to have tables with custom fonts and custom types of conditional formatting. We couldn't do that with Data Studio's built-in tables. A few more lines of code here in HTML, but again, the CSS is really nice and tidy, and we could achieve that. Next one is something that is really helpful, at least it was for us, because if you have used Data Studio frequently, you know that it is not possible to have more than 50 components of data on a single page of the report. More than that, Data Studio just throws out an error and doesn't allow you to. But what if we have 175 countries with the number of users and we want to show each of them in a scorecard? This is actually a responsive card grid that is scrollable, right? We have a lot of values here, and we're not kind of limited by the number of components on the page, because this is basically one component. And I basically looped through the different values in this table using HTML, handlebar, and CSS. Okay. The next example is something getting the URL of the images from data. So the dimension, the source of the image comes from data. A metric assigned to that image, again, comes from data. Right now, it's just one for this example. But then all the, going from black and white to color and the animation and things like that, this is all with CSS. We don't even use JavaScript for this one, right? And these are all available in demos. I will share the code and everything with you if you want to use them. You can use tabs, like for example, for Insight, if you want to add your insight to a report with a client to look at. But again, you don't want to clutter your report. This is basically a simple tabs, HTML tabs with just CSS and HTML. We just loaded it in templr.pro. I can show you, like if you click the component, go under the style tab. It's a little bit more code because most of it is like the paragraphs of text, but some CSS at the bottom. And we actually copy pasted this example from somewhere. I guess it's CodePen. I need to figure out the credit and paste it here. But basically, whatever HTML and CSS that you can find that, and you might be using on your website or somewhere else, you can load it in templr.pro and feed actual data within using Data Studio. This is one of the examples that is a little bit more complicated, but it's really, really useful. And this is actually from a client work that I needed to redact their name. They have different shops across the US. Each of those shops has availabilities on different dates, and their marketing team is tasked to fill up that availability capacity with different channels of advertising, right? And they wanted to see on one page in Data Studio everything about their business in a single page, right? And we couldn't do it with anything that was built-in available in Data Studio because it was a lot of bar charts and things like that. So we created this with templr.pro, and it's actually it's being powered by a live query from Data Studio to a BigQuery data set. But basically, we managed to show all of their stores, right, and their availability in the future. So, for example, this store has availability like 70 slots availability on this date, 14th of March, but 66 are already remaining, and that day is 21 days from now. So looking at this, they can easily see what kind of availabilities did they miss, which of one of their stores need more attention in booking their availability in the this week and coming week, and they can easily reallocate their marketing expenditure to actually help their stores that need more help. So yeah, this was a real example. They love it. They use it every day. They have actually hired someone to look at it every day and adjust their marketing activities. And it wasn't possible without templr.pro or any kind of custom visualization. And the good point is you could do it too, because templr.pro is 100% free and will be. You can access it from https templr.pro. You need to sign up, and then you will receive the manifest path for templr.pro. And there are demos, there are documentation, which we're working on. And if you have any questions, you can on LinkedIn, not on Twitter. I don't really check my messages over there. So, but on LinkedIn and through email, you can contact me, and I would be happy to hear your ideas, feedback, or answer your questions. And this is the website. You can also see a quick video of how it works. That was a lot. I need to make it quick, so I couldn't go into a lot of details, but that was it for me. And thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Ahmad, for that awesome presentation. I told you guys it was a surprise of what it could do. So while Ahmad was going through his presentation, I went ahead and added the Funnel Pro tool to our document that we were using. And so here is our eyes on the journey, part of our eyes on the journey with this particular tool right here. And so by default, it actually is a horizontal funnel that we saw before. And as he mentioned, we can change all of these different colors, lots of different options that we can have in here. And since, we just found out ways that we can contact the mod. So if we have any suggestions or questions or anything like that, we know where to find him. He is back there in the winner circle. You obviously saw his site, cavac.com, and he mentioned a mod at cavac.com. He's also on LinkedIn, as you just saw, and don't use Twitter. We just found that out. So that was our lesson 1, topic 3, Templar Pro. Up next is we are going to review all of lesson 1, advanced design tips and tricks. All right, let's review lesson 1, advanced design tips and tricks. Let's take it back to one thing. What was the one thing for you? For those of you that are live, go ahead and put it in the chat and we can review that here in a moment when we get to our Q&A. We'd love to hear it. So your one thing, remember, it's not your job or your mission to get everything that we just said and you absorb it all. That's not really possible. You're not going to be a master of all the things. You can master one of the things right now, and then watch it later and pick up something else as your one thing. And as Mercer mentioned earlier, we have to be able to tell a useful story so that we can go through the entire framework. You're going to start with your different questions and information, and giving those actions. And most of the stuff that is in this course that's beyond the basics, you're not going to do this in the very beginning part of your journey. These are things that are probably going to make your dashboards better. So you're going to be leveling up the dashboard, and kind of be planning for those as you're collecting your data, like the scroll thing, kind of plan how you're going to organize your data when you're going through that, and possibly anything else like the eyes on the journey, how you're going to collect that data so that you can display and tell the story properly, or in a more useful way, so you can be able to take those actions and optimize. All right, what we covered in this particular lesson, we talked about conditional formatting and being able to tell a better story. We actually saw lots of different ways to do conditional formatting. We also talked about community visualizations and be able to use those to guide the user to understand the data and tell the story with the data better, and with all those. And we also showed you how to see and take a peek behind the scenes with the other community visualizations to see what other people can offer that isn't just listed. And that's what Ahmad also showed you with Templar.pro, being able to build your own community visualization with that particular one. So super awesome tools that we have there. Now, your next steps are, guess what? Ride the bike. That's what we always say. You can hear and listen and watch people, riding a bike all the time. But until you actually get on the bike, you won't understand everything that you're seeing and hearing and playing with or watching people play with. So get on the bike, even if it's just going to go poke around, and review your own dashboard to see if there's any opportunities for you to tell a better story with any of the things that you learned today. So you can be able to take action, and then see if you are able to add conditional formatting to your conversion rates. Does it make sense for you to do that right now? Or is that something that you do in a later stage? If so, that's fine. Just notate it down that you want to do that eventually. Same thing with community visualizations. Did you see something you like that you want to add eventually? And same thing with Templar.pro. Did you see something that you like there? Poke around and try it. And just a side note for this Templar.pro, some of you might be like, oh my goodness, that's way too complicated for me. Ahmad showed this when he was in the process of developing and they're building it. I don't know hardly anything in CSS. I know all things like Data Studio and pretty good with, other types of technical stuff, but when it comes to like CSS, HTML, it truly is a different language. And by following Ahmad's examples and walkthroughs, I was able to get it. So if I can use that tool, then I know that you guys would definitely be able to use it, the Templar.pro tool. So, and it's really, you are, just go poke around on it, you really are able to do some really cool conditional formatting things with it too. As someone mentioned in our chat that we'll get to our Q&A, they're asking like, hey, can you do images, or you technically you can use emojis or different other things like that. You can absolutely do that with these kind of tools. So just definitely take a peek in there just so you know what is available, because maybe your next client will ask that question and you'll be able to like, absolutely, we can do that. Just know what's available and what's possible. All right, so you have just watched lesson number 1, advanced design tips and tricks. Coming up next is going to be lesson 2, advanced formulas. So see you there. And thanks for watching WIN Google Data Studio Beyond Basics. All right. I'll give Mercer a moment to get our YouTube stuff together. So for everyone that is here live, you guys can start putting your notes in chat or raise your hands. So if you have any questions coming up, and tomorrow's topic, by the way, is going to be taught by our very own JJ Reynolds. So he's the one that is also going to knock your socks off with his topic too. So super excited about it. I think one of our certified measurement marketers said that he broke the internet with what he did. So he didn't truly, but he just boggled our minds. So, all right, Mercer, are you ready for us to go into Q&A? Okay, all right. I didn't know if you were doing all the YouTube stuff behind the scenes. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to start at the very beginning. So Samantha is, she was practicing with her productivity dashboard. She dropped a link in the chat. Super cool. Love that. I'm going to show it off because I think it's, I love the fact that you're using emojis in with your, basically instead of names, you're using emojis, which just in case if you don't know how to do that, really is super simple. Like I believe we talk about in one of the basics or one of our workshops, but it is just adding those in, like with you would right click and choose emoji if you're using Chrome. But super cool, like this, that she's just practicing with Data Studio. So very awesome, Samantha. And if there was a question in there, I did not see it, but it's super great. And then Alan asked the question, it's already been answered in chat, but just in case you're wondering, can conditional formatting control the use of characters or images? And this is what I was mentioning before, and Ahmad even responded in chat that you can do that with his tool. I'm actually going to pull it up. Is it this one? So one of the tools that he mentioned before. So here is, I gotta go to, so conditional content. So this is the one where you can use emojis or whatever it is that you're looking for. So go to, just type in CVAC or hey, I'm gonna put this in the chat for y'all. Here we go, unless someone else already did it, but there you go. So that is the one, and he also has the one for fonts too. So there's 2 different ones, and then obviously there's Templar.pro where you can build your own too. So that's the answer to that. But in Data Studio, no, it's Data Studio by itself without using a community visualization. It's not possible to do that. We just have the colors as our only options. All right, coming back to our questions. Samantha said, Templar.pro just made this entire week's worth of classes 100% worth attending live. Thank you very much, Samantha. That was super sweet. And she says she's been trying to make a network module graph in Data Studio for a long time. And so I'm going to show the example that she suggested. And so she's trying to do something like this is what they're trying. She's trying to do this stuff. And so for Ahmad to show in his presentation, the stuff that he basically did for fun, that's super cool. So if you have any questions particular about that, you know how to reach out to Ahmad for that. And then going to go ahead and go look for actual questions. Carolyn said her one thing was properly setting up conditional formatting, adding in the extra criteria to make sure they always work, and then all the cool stuff that Templar.pro does. Absolutely. Samantha has a general question. In leveling up my skills, I'm trying to decide at what point I should say it's beyond my needs or and one of the most important decisions I'm trying to make is whether I should learn R. Do you think it's necessary for measurement marketing and community health measurement, or is that firmly in the realm of data analyst engineering role? So I'm going to let other people if you want to respond to Samantha's in chat, you definitely can. Ahmad, I'm going to see if you, what are your thoughts for Samantha for her learning R? I have my opinion, but I want to hear what yours is too.
Oh, yeah, mine is also an opinion because, if you want to work with data, when you have raw data, you want to try and analyze it, visualize it. Data Studio allows you to perform some kind of basic data modeling now, a little bit more with the newest update, but it's still limited. And you need to have other tools to work with data, to model data, to shape it in a way that you want to figure out the answer to your questions. Google Sheet is one of them. Many analysts use Google Sheet and Excel to just slice and dice data and model them. But if you want to take it one step further, then you need to look at kind of SQL or a programming language like R or Python. I don't know R or Python, but I know kind of my way around SQL. And I basically prefer SQL to start with because, first of all, it's easier. It's just like English language, you can read it. And secondly, is that SQL is the actual language that you can use in Google Cloud BigQuery to access and work with data. And BigQuery, it plays very nicely with Data Studio, has a smooth connection with Data Studio to then aggregate, further model and calculate and visualize your data or analysis in BigQuery. And also it can get data very easily with from the new Google Analytics 4. So if you start with SQL and you hit like a roadblock, that's something that you cannot really do with SQL and need some more advanced language to do that, then you can look at R, Python. And that is my opinion on that.
Very cool. And I'll just share my opinion that if you don't want to learn the different coding languages, maybe that is a goal of yours, Samantha, but if you are probably like me and don't want to learn how to speak a different language, there's one thing being aware, like if you're traveling and needing to say, where's the bathroom, where do I eat, how do I pay? Yes, being aware of the certain things that you're going to be exposed to, like SQL and those others. But learning it completely, if you don't want to, that's where you can, but you need to, that's where you can think about having another team member do that. Like for us, the team member that on our team that is super technical with those type of things is Sarah. And so and that helps us with our team for those type of skills. So I can be aware of them and I can just know enough to ask her like, hey, can we do this? For that. So I don't, in this scenario, I don't have to go say, I need to learn SQL so we can do this for our team. Like, no, we've expanded our team to handle that. So for those of you that are like, oh crap, do I need to learn that? No, like most likely not. But being aware of what's possible is definitely good to do. All right, jumping down to our other questions. Alan has, are there any notable tips and traps to keep in mind when applying GA custom segments to Google Data Studio dashboards? For example, identifying specific audience in GA by the pages they visit, then applying a user segment to a dashboard. So great question. And I'm going to pull over our dashboard just to see here. I'm going to come back to our first page where we have all of our different numbers. Actually, I got to go to our second page because that's third page. That's all spreadsheet data. So I need to get into one where there's actually Google Analytics data. So what Alan is referring to is down here where we say Google Analytics segment, and you can apply those in there. So what is it that, I'm just re-looking at your question. tips and tricks. So we do have a course real quick. I want to show you. And we're going to actually end up redoing this particular course pretty soon here in 2022. And it's called W.I.N funnel tracking. And then we talk a lot about segments in this particular course. If you, I believe you've watched this one, Alan, but if you haven't, go through this one. And it talks a lot about the logic of segments and how to build your segments. And as long as your segments are built properly in Google Analytics, there really shouldn't be any other traps that you should fall into in Data Studio. The main thing is making sure your logic works with like, hey, you're using users, not page views or something like that. So if you have a specific concern, you can drop it in chat or use Ask an Instructor. But as long as your logic is built properly in analytics, you should be fine. And there is also too, and it's not specific to segments, you do have to worry about scope. That's something we talked briefly about in the basics, but it's kind of like when you combine certain things together in analytics, that you got to make sure they work together. For example, I'm just going to go through this real quick, like product revenue, product revenue and transactions cannot work together because they're kind of like in two different buckets of data in analytics. So product revenue is associated with all the different products. So think in an e-com store of all the different parts and pieces that you buy, but then transactions like the overall. And so there's certain things that you cannot pull together. So as long as you're in not using your segment, let's say segment has transactions and you're trying to pull product in Data Studio, that's not going to work anyway. So overall, Data Studio is more like analytics where you still have to have that scope level. So that is a trap that you have to worry about with all things in analytics and Data Studio, not specific to segments. So, all right. And then, yes. And so Carolyn is asking where to find the class where a mod created. He was going to mention it in a future lesson, but he does have a new cohort for his profitable dashboards coming up here in next month. Or if you're listening to this in a recording later on, definitely reach out to Ahmad and he will get you the when the newest cohort is or the next upcoming cohort. So reach out to him on that one. Highly recommend it. You do have to have the basic knowledge for Data Studio and he will tell you that. So I'm just going to let you know that too. You get your basics down, practice with it, be familiar with it. And it is a level up even from what you're going to learn here in this course. That's the whole point. We're all about teaching the beginners and the basics and a little bit beyond the basics. And Ahmad takes it to a whole nother level, which is fantastic. Another quick question. It says on conversion rate forecast for cold transactions, if you are thinking about Google PPC, would it be the same as the click-through rate? And so the funnel, I'm looking at this, the transactions. So this number, the funnel conversion rate, is actually the people that land on the cart and then purchase. So that's what this formula is. And is that what you're asking, Carolyn, if you want to?
That's how to think about it. So you could definitely use conditional formatting, but none of these are click-through rate because click-through rate is going to be like 1% or less, for some of the stuff. So you would just come up with the same sort of like, what's a good click-through rate? What's a good range? What's one that's a little higher, one a little lower, one that's too high, one that's too low. Like too high might be if you have an insanely high click-through rate, it might be because the traffic doesn't scale to that word, right? Or maybe you got to expand out the targeting a little bit. And obviously if it's insanely low, maybe it's just a bad keyword or something like that you're focusing on. So, but same technique, just a different metric than what is shown here. And then Julie, before we wrap up, Samantha was saying definitely great first session. Thank you for that. And then Hans is waiting too. Wants to chat live.
Ooh, Hans.
And then we'll wrap up with Hans.
All right, Hans, go ahead and chat live with us.
Yeah, just a couple real quick questions. This screen that you have up now, the cheat sheet, The first item there is opt-in. I imagine that that is the count of impressions onto the page and not like a subscription for email or something like that.
Correct. So yes, so in the spirit of this, this would be like someone, I still have it open, someone coming into our toolbox page. Let me try to get it pulled up. This is one of those times where I'm like, 3 screens would be really great. I'm gonna finally steal one from another part of the house and get 3 screens going. So the way we have, and this is the way we think about opt-in rates, you know, again, what Mercer said, you can adjust it to make it your own, but it's the users that see this page or come to this page, and then users that actually opt in get to the next page. And so that's for an opt-in rate. Webinar opt-in rates might be a little bit higher depending on if it's cold audience, warm, you know, cold or warm. And so this is just to give you a guide of what is generally expected. So that's why you can copy this, and then I'll actually drop the link. And no, I won't drop the link. I want to show you so you guys can take screenshots. So here is the short link for you. I didn't want to put it, I actually had to switch up the presentation because I didn't know it was going to be live for YouTube. I forgot it was going to be live.
Can you put that, it doesn't matter, put that in chat too if you can, that link.
Yeah.
Just 'cause.
Hold on.
Actually, I'll type it in while you're chatting away.
Okay. But you will go ahead and copy it, and then you can make it your own. Like if you want to make this for a client specific, you can adjust all of these and, you know, duplicate and make it for your own for a particular client, then copy it again and make it for a different client and stuff. So, and then just come in here and for your own document, adjust whatever it is and just the logic, practice with the logic it is for you for that particular client of that document that you want. So, like if you do a lot of webinar stuff, maybe you need to have a section down here that's your webinar, and you just, it's your own cheat sheet so you can know what it is. And then so if you, as you build out clients, you just know you come in here and copy and paste the style, and so it's just your own cheat sheet for you.
But again, the opt-in, that's synonymous with impression for the page that, for the offer page?
No, that's the number of people that actually hit the thank you page is what that is. Like how many people actually opted in. That's what the opt-in would be, like the opt-in rate. The number of people who actually gave you an email. Offer page might be the number of people who saw the offer page. Cart page would be the number of people who saw the cart page. Opt-in page, in this example, this opt-in rate is just the number of people who actually opted in, not the number of people who saw the opt-in page. It is definitely confusing because I get how you're seeing it, because it's like, you know, each thing sort of needs its own little definition. But that's, again, this is just kind of like a cheat sheet guide.
This is our quick and dirty version out.
Yep.
You know, we're going to have our design team and we're going to put some definitions in here and stuff like that. This is just me playing around on a Sunday.
This is just to show the concept. This isn't something we necessarily have to, this is not, don't think of it like a template. Don't get too caught up in the template part of this. Just like, oh, here's the concept. For example, if you were trying to measure an opt-in rate, and that's probably a better word, is like opt-in rate, then offer page, right? Number of people, views of an offer page, views of a cart page, number of people, total, you know, overall conversion rate of a funnel. Like these are just examples of things. And to Carolyn's point earlier, you could do it with click-through rate, you know, and do that. Like, what's your click-through rate coming through? You could do it for impressions and reach. I mean, you can do it for any metric, but the concept is what is the more important part here, if that makes sense.
Okay, that's where I was getting confused. It's because, you know, there's a progression here, you know, from offer page to cart page, and funnel is the overall. And then I'm thinking, okay, the opt-in, that must be the impression.
Yeah, don't look at these as separate, like 4 separate examples, not a thing that's put together.
Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. Very good question.
And then one last question is the goal, the green part there. When it gets too high, okay, like let's look at the offer page. The goal is 8 to 12%, but it's too high when it's greater than 15%. And you were saying before that there might be a point at which you would make that 15%, if it's consistently high like that, make that the goal, right? So the question then is, at what, you know, how do you decide when you're going to make that too high percentage or conversion rate a goal. And when are you going to just say, we're going to wait a while and just try to drive more traffic to drive that conversion rate of too high?
I'll take this one because we sort of make those decisions on our end based upon the amount of data that we have. So if it's more than 100 people that have gone through it, and out of 100 conversions, I'm seeing these sort of numbers, then I'm probably got a fairly reliable trend where that it's not going to change unless something changes, right? It's going to be there. So at that point, we can say, well, that's either, hey, we were mistaken and it actually is better than we thought it was going to be. We could make that decision, right? Or we go, and the only reason we would do that, which is kind of the question behind the question here, the only reason we would decide to do that is if all the other things are working as expected as well. So if everything's working well and that's what's happening, we're like, cool, maybe we discovered something new. And at that point, we would take that technique or whatever we think that's causing that, and we would move to putting it to another funnel or another customer journey and seeing if the same thing happens there, right? And maybe we figured out a new way to adjust behaviors that we're getting a better result. Like that is totally plausible. But if we're getting these incredibly high numbers and we have, let's say, even 100 conversions going through, but I look at the traffic number and I'm like, yeah, but traffic should be much higher. We still haven't scaled it. Well, that's probably what's causing this number to be higher because the traffic number is not high. So let's get that up and running, right? All the metrics in the funnel. And then if that's not the case, we focus on that other metric. It's like, okay, let's not worry about this one yet. Let's make sure we focus on the traffic because we're not getting enough traffic to begin with, type of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if you're getting like more than 100, traffic of more than 100, you would go ahead and then go ahead and maybe, alter the goal or change the goal to 15%.
But just to emphasize, potentially, because that's if I wanted 100 in traffic, awesome. 100 just tells me there's a trend, right? But if my goal was like, it should have been 10,000 in traffic, then obviously traffic's the key, right? I don't even worry about this number. I'm like, let's get traffic up. That's the main thing to worry about right now. Okay. So it depends kind of what you're looking for.
And you also have to look at the seasonality of it too. Sometimes if you have a promo for a few weeks, like let's say November, December, you have promos going on and it is consistently above 15. But is that just because you have all those promos going on and the type of traffic that's coming through, the type of product you have?
Other things explain it. Could be a holiday, right?
Yeah. So there's other things. And so you would have to look at it, the whole big picture before you decide to change. And if you work with traffic with our clients that have affiliates, sometimes they have affiliates that do really well and sometimes their affiliates don't do so. So you have to kind of big picture to decide if you need to adjust your goal.
But you're always asking, like, is this working like it's supposed to? And that's what guides it. So
right.
Does that help, Hans?
Yeah, it does help. I guess the key there is just having a somewhat of an understanding of how much traffic you're expecting.
That's exactly right. Of all your metrics, you should have some sort of forecast that says, okay, here's how I know this is good, so that you can combine things and answer questions like this. Because the numbers will guide you, but sometimes you can't look at the number, just a number by itself. It's the numbers in relation to the other numbers around it that tell you the story. That's exactly right. And it starts with having an understanding, or at least a guess, right? To start out with in the beginning, everyone has to guess, to kind of guess, okay, here's what I think should be happening. Is that happening, right?
Yeah, okay. That's cool. Good. Thank you.
Excellent. Great question. So with that, we will go ahead and officially wrap it up. Julie, if you want to take us home.
Yes. All right. Thank you for watching W.I.N Google Data Studio Beyond Basics. We will see you in the next lesson. Thanks, guys.